So let's now look at our subject of discussion on this very segment, AM Talk. But again, I have to remind you on my banner today for many of the parents who are waiting for, is it posting or the admission list, or I think the admission of their wards into various senior high schools. You shouldn't worry at all. We know that you sometimes have concerns about the posting or the admissions as they have been done over the years by the computerized and placement system. And we're going to have the national coordinator in the studio, and George Barton is going to join me this morning. But now let me just introduce my guest. We have a member of parliament for Damango, Adam Mutawakilo, in the studio. Mr. Mutawakilo, it's been a while. I love your dress.
Thank you.
Next time you come into the studio, get one ready for me.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you.
And then Nana Atubra Kweku is the head of research at the Dankwa Institute. It's a think tank, right?
Yeah.
Think tank.
It is.
Okay. You're just like the IEA and the others.
Yeah.
In the same category.
In the same category.
No biases.
Oh, we have our biases.
Right. Okay. So now let's look at a subject that has been raging or getting a lot more media prominence over the last 2 days. On the front page of the Daily Graphic, it says 4 groups attack CHRAJ boss. We're talking about Ms. Loretta Lamptey. Joy News has also extensively covered this very story, particularly about the concerns being raised by some other NGOs and think tanks, like, of course, not only the IEA, but the Dankwa Institute, over how much was spent on the bills of the CHRAJ boss as she waited for her bungalow to be completed since she took over as the commissioner. And we've had also some discussions with Emil Short. Professor Emil Short has also been a former commissioner of CHRAJ before, so those are concerns being raised all around. I have to start with you. Okay, he's a think tank person. I'll start with you.
Yeah. You know, the setup of CHRAJ as an institute or a body, you know, to check on human rights abuses and, of course, administrative recklessness in governance in corporate organizations is one that is protected by law. And so there are a lot of expectations of such a body, especially in this part of the world where in our recent history we have excesses and abuses and all of that. And the history of CHRAJ in particular, when it comes to administrative justice and human rights abuses, is one that everybody looks up to, appeals to. Sometimes we've been concerned about the posture of CHRAJ, you know, in looking at issues where they demand that there must be, you know, applications made to them. There must be issues raised or presented to them before they can, you know, show interest and handle all of that. And now we have a situation where the head of that august body, you know, is involved in what some of us term as administrative recklessness.
Meaning what?
That for 3 years, the CHRAJ boss doesn't have a residence officially and has to be housed at the AU village, and government is paying huge sums of money. There's a government that is going for a bailout. You know, it makes us look funny. What is our priority? That CHRAJ has a head that does not have an official appointment for 3 years.
Well,
and we've paid hundreds of thousands.
What they do, I think, don't you think that, Mr. Kweku, we need to put things into perspective? The point is they have an official residence for the CHRAJ boss.
Yes.
But the CHRAJ boss, when she was appointed, and I believe after an assessment has been made, was determined that the official resident needed to undergo some facelift.
Yeah.
And the facelift, in waiting for the facelift, she used to live
functionally, somewhere. It doesn't exist because she's not living there. She should be living elsewhere. So that it exists on paper or in physical structure, but she can't live in it, means it's not there. And so we have to find an alternative and pay huge sums of money. And I understand about 180,000 cedis has been spent so far in the renovation of the building. I mean, what building needs 180,000 cedi renovation? It can put up a whole building. The amount of money that has been spent housing at the AU village can put up any executive building that should be fitted status. So, where lies our priority? I mean, who watches over CHRAJ? And so what should we do? For us, where we sit, we think there should be a probe. And there should be a sanctioning after an investigation. How come that for 3 years, renovation has been going? It's not even finished. And where was she living before she was appointed? I mean, we've had situations where presidents or former presidents have lived in their own buildings, lived in their own homes, you know, waiting for a while for what is theirs officially to be ready. But, I mean, the money we've spent in this is not right.
Well, Adam, is it a thing about who watches the watchdog person? So the one playing the watchdog role, who is then supervising the watchdog person?
The administrative duties. If she's been appointed and her official residence is not ready, before it gets ready, it has to go through the procurement processes and all that. If she's been housed at AU Village and subsequently she has to move, I think that they should fast-track the renovation and get the person done. However, my colleague just indicated a former president stayed in his own house. How much was spent in the renovation? It was an issue that came up.
Well, the renovation was done, I believe, by a farmer. Are you not talking about the former president?
That is what we say by a farmer. If she stays, she should have stayed in her own house. She indicated clearly that she was staying with the mother. But people were in this country who should have stayed in their own houses, never stayed in their own houses, moved to residential official accommodation, and finally bought those property. What happened to those ones? Are you getting my point?
I'm getting your point. But do you think that from your observation, it is a duty of equalization?
No.
Just because something was wrong before.
So
if it's undertaken now, it's right. You do admit that what happened in the past was wrong, right?
Yes.
So what happened now is wrong?
What happened now is that renovation is ongoing. So she was housed somewhere.
For 3 years.
I'm okay. And as a result, it has incurred. In terms of the expenditure, I would say ethically, it's not the best.
Morally, it's not good.
Morally, it's not good.
Okay.
To be very frank.
If you were
I would have looked at it
if you were
and look at it. No, this place, I think if I go here, that will be it.
Okay.
That is it.
Okay. You are a member of parliament.
Yes.
Do you think that as a politician, and going beyond the subject of being a politician to somebody who is a state person who is appointed into public office, there need to be some inherent need to sacrifice? And so, for example, we're talking about a bill of $203,500 for as being the expenses incurred so far in the makeshift accommodation of her. Now, the other bill that has been estimated for the renovation of a bungalow is 185,000, I believe, Ghana cedis. Do you think that as a public official, you also need to have in you some sense of sacrifice? And in what form should it take? And in this instance, how would you suggest?
You see, in public life, you must place yourself to the level of the ordinary people. We are servants. And as such, whatever you are doing, you go backward, look at it. And then based on that, you pass judgment. There are a lot of things when you occupy an office. A lot of things when you occupy an office, people will come and make a lot of suggestions to you. A lot. That, oh, this one is okay, you can do it. Always sit back, look at it, and reference to the people you are with, and then take a decision. And that is how I always go with mine. People will come with suggestions. If you go deep down, somebody might have misled her. But that is not a yardstick to blame somebody. I always want to put it to myself. Look at it. Somebody has suggested it. Is it the best option in relative to what the people you're going to be in charge of? And that thing should play a key role in whatever we are doing. Yeah.
Now, Kwaku, we've come to a point where I have lived in the United States of America. I'm talking about, I'm putting myself in her shoes. Yeah. Perhaps I have a building in the States. I don't have a building in Ghana, just because I've lived, I think, the better part of my life in the U.S. So whether I have a building here or not, I don't think is necessary. I've taken up this very position. I feel I needed to have accommodation. I come, I see the accommodation, and I feel it is not up to scratch for me. I recommend it's being renovated. It's not ready. At what point do I say, well, I believe this is this much and too much for the public purse? As a result of that, I would want to sacrifice. And at which point do I then go with the tide based on the recommendations inherent within the administrative processes, which also says, oh, you can go ahead and occupy whatever makeshift accommodation you have?
You know, to answer what you just asked, 6 months to 1 year is not too long a time, you know, to wait for any serious renovation to take place.
It's taking them 3 years.
It's taking them 3 years. So between 6 months to 1 year is not too long to wait.
So you're saying
so
that
anything beyond that, I would have expected it from her, championing the cause that there is something gone amiss. We can't wait forever until renovation is complete. Even these 3 years is not ready yet. And so, what should we do? Should we wait forever? For how long? And these are some of the excesses that I think, like you suggested, ethically and morally, it doesn't place her good. In some part of the world, she will be resigning, because she's had a role to play in all of these things. She didn't have to pay for renovation, but then for heading such a body and sitting for this while, 3 years, and not a voice from her. I don't know how this broke out. But then now it's out in the public domain, but she has not been the one championing this abuse, which she ought to have been. And so she's brought this upon herself, partly, and she should face the consequence.
Do you think that there's all this public outcry from all sections, NGOs, the media, politicians, and the generality of the public, because she's occupying this very position?
That is the money is coming from public purse.
No, I know,
yes.
But is it because she's a CHRAJ boss, and we know the commission is supposed to make sure that acts of corruption and things like that, you know, it's an anti-graft agency.
No, it is not necessary because it is CHRAJ. Any political position or public position.
It's not a political position, it's a public position.
Yeah, that is political or public. Okay. I just want to make it general. I don't want it to be specific. You are subject to criticisms. You are subject to corrections. Because by human being, we can't be 100% perfect. And you must accept it. And therefore, any decision that you take must have reflection on first the people, and then what you think will be generally acceptable. I think that is what, as a public officer and also as a politician, we must have at the back of our mind.
So when these decisions were taken, you think she should have said what? I think this money is too much?
She should have looked, to me, she should have looked at it and look at the state of the economy, where we are, and that should inform her what to do. Yes. To me.
I see it's a very sensitive issue for you, the politicians,
but
as well.
Before the renovation comes, there must be bills of quantities, and that must go through a process. She might not have much say into what goes to the bills of quantity, because she's not an expert or an engineer to decide. And when they come out, you cannot say, maybe you might decide that, okay, this thing, I might not need it. This thing, I will need it. Yes. But the engineers will come out with their bills of quantities. Based on that, the procurement processes kickstart.
Well, you know, I'm not an engineer.
Well, quickly, yes.
I'm not into civil works and all of those things. But, you know, I mean, I have mind. I should be reasonable, so that if the renovation of a building, I have seen the building myself, is going, you know, beyond a year, I should begin to raise questions. And I know how much is being paid to house me at the AU village. And I know what the country is going through. I mean, I should know that if the public gets a hint of it, there will be an outcry. And I should be sensitive to all of these things. So I can't just sit down and I'm ignorant about the engineering works and how long it will take, and so I'm going to sit down.
Well, how about this? We have a personality who has stayed in the U.S. for a lot of the times. Perhaps maybe this is even peanuts in the U.S. You never know, for hiring a place for a public official, etc. We never know. But is it also because she may have been alien to what's the subculture of what the insensitivity or sensitivity of the ordinary Ghanaian would be?
I don't want to give her that excuse, that because she's been living in the U.S., she's practicing in the U.S., and so therefore she's not sensitive to what is happening here. I mean, what is reasonable anywhere in the world.
What actions then should we be taking, Mr. Mutawakilo?
Yeah, for now, we need to investigate to see how it goes.
The investigation has been undertaken. Well, just by the media, though. Not
yeah, that's the media. Maybe it could be formal.
So the media is wrong?
Eh?
You said the media?
No, the media is the watchdog.
Okay.
The fourth arm of government, and they are playing their role. So, but their investigation is not conclusive, and it's not official. That is what. So I think we need to go into it, come up with some answers to respond to whatever the media has carried out. Yes.
Okay. You're a politician. Do you think there's wanton abuse of public office, whether it's by politicians or just normal public servants?
By her or?
No, generally.
No.
I mean, we get strings of abuses of positions by people who have been appointed.
You see, when you deal with a population and you deal with majority of people, definitely you can't have 100%. And no government has ever had 100% discipline. It's made up of different people with different motives, different characters, different attitudes. And so, therefore, you must have some few ones. But in generality, I think it's not bad. Yes. And many of them are doing very, very well. Yeah.
You know, I can chronicle a lot. There's one going on the CHRAJ Commission. You know, if you listen to the...
That's an example of abuse of public office.
It's there. It's been with our politics. It's been with our public service. So it's there. And we can't excuse them.
Are we failing to acknowledge that these are failings, and so we should be having corrective measures? Because it may not start from this government or this very era. So let's not even limit it to only governments, but this era. For decades past, we've had all that from Nkrumah time. We've had issues with Krobo Eduse and all those things, etc., right through the various decades that we've had.
You know, I think I put the blame in the politics within the politics. So
meaning what?
Concern or care for public good is not the consideration of most of our politicians.
As well as?
We're
only not focusing on politics.
Certainly. For the politicians, it's more about what will bring us votes. We are concerned about the next election. And so, whatever that we can do to ensure that we win the next election is what we do.
But this is not a politician per se. So we're having instances where it's not necessarily politicians. And also it's been chronicled, especially when you get to have an insight into the sittings of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. You get to see that most of the abuses really are not by the 275 parliamentarians and the other politicians who have been appointed, by the thousands of the public servants who are serving in the various ministries, departments and agencies.
Certainly, certainly. And sometimes you'd want to wonder or imagine how they all got into the place. You know, I've been reading some study, and the competence and the qualifications of people within our public service, my brother, is low and below standard.
Meaning what? People have master degrees, they have doctorates. Some have even been conferred with professorships, etc. And you dispute their ability to be able to perform in office.
My brother, going to school and earning a degree or certificate is not equal to the ability to deliver when you expect to deliver. So people's experiences and qualifications cannot be restricted to that they have certificates, they have masters, they are professors. Like yourself, you are saying, there are people who have all these chains of degrees. I mean, Africa is said to have some of the highest numbers of doctors. Go to Nigeria. But the bane of our society has been these very people. So it is not enough that we have all these certificates and degrees, so therefore our problems are solved.
So on what basis do we engage them? If you say you hold a master, it doesn't necessarily mean. So on what basis do you get those who are qualified but who can do the work but they are not qualified to do it?
The point is
it is time as people of Ghana and as politicians
and public servants.
Let's
make that clear as well. I don't want us to
not to be limiting. You see, when something happens and it's a public servant, they'll finally go and blame either the president.
No, I think in this very instance,
and that is where
there are some politicians who
a lot of them.
Yes.
Yeah, they would like to link it, and that is why corrective measures are always a problem. So we don't hit the nail on the head, but we find and trace it to where it shouldn't be. So it is time we realize that as Ghanaians, when somebody makes a mistake, take him by it and don't go and blame another person. For example, what is going at the commission, the president set up the commission. It's bringing revealing things.
To what end?
Yes, that is, let it end, and then we'll see.
It's a commission. We know how it will end.
This exposure, and at the beginning of it, the president make it clear. It's a fact.
But even the exposure alone, even enough to create the awareness among the public.
We've been having this exposure.
No,
we've been having
I think the next World Cup will be a different. It will be a different thing. And you realize that
I believe so too, because even hearing the issues themselves is getting a lot more. The media, etc., even a lot more aware that the next time these are the way they need to undertake the questioning.
Yes, because in terms of food, this was what happened.
And nobody will even be offering projects without contract, etc.
And you realize that the female team went to Canada because of some of these things. It came up clean. So far, no issue has been raised in respect of that. These things are necessary for the future. It's very, very necessary. And if a public officer commits that crime, let's hold him responsible and don't go and blame somebody else for it.
Okay. And because you're a politician, let me just pose this very question. And I heard this from a politician, I think a member of parliament, your colleague, and he said, well, you need to blame the president. Of course, he also tried to find the route to the president because all these appointments by the constitution demands that the president makes the final approvals. He said that that is why it is important if you are appointed into public office or into political office, you need to be a self-made person. I would want to, for a personality like this, she is a self-made person. Just doesn't have a building here in Ghana doesn't mean that she's not a self-made person. Is it not necessarily because as humans we don't take the best decisions when we're in positions of trust and authority?
I would say...
Should you always be having 2 buildings, 5 cars, or having lump sums of money in your account before you vie for political office or appointed into public office?
That is the capitalist point of view. We are social democrats. The capitalist point of view says that you must be self-made. If you are self-made, means you are the best person for the position. Yeah.
It means you should be wealthy.
You are the best person for the position.
Okay, you as a
social democrats
means what? If you're a self-made person, what?
No, we believe that there are those who relate with the people.
Well, I do understand.
Yes.
But if you're self-made social democrats,
you don't use it as a prelude to rule the people.
So you can be a poor person.
You can be rule and still rule. It's how you relate to the people. Very, very critical.
Don't you think that in the current dispensation we have, if you're a self-made person, in the capitalist sense, as you seem to categorize it, then it precludes you, and you even having the idea of perhaps even embezzling public funds very much far away.
What happens is that if you are self-made already and you boast of it, even when you take the public fund, you say, I was already rich. It's not because of this office that I'm rich. I'm self-made. I know I'm rich before I became So it becomes difficult to distinguish between what you are taking from the people
and then the Social Democrats
and
will
where
say
you have
that,
gotten to.
well, I took this because I was poor. Is that what it was?
No, it's a question you asked for. And I said, we are social democrats, where you relate to the ordinary. We don't deal with self-made. And when you're dealing with self-made, that is capitalist point of view, where you feel that...
Then if you're in your office, you should live like a social democrat. You should live like the way you were when you were
certain position might change you because of the position. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't relate to your people, find out the need of the people and solve it.
How do you relate to your people? You're relating to your people, but you're embezzling their funds.
No. I'm an MP. And I pay the distance, they will give me a loan to get a V8.
All right.
Should I say I don't need V8? It's a loan that I'll pay. I need to visit my people because of the distance.
So it makes you look plush, but it doesn't mean that you're plush.
I take my V8, it's not with me in Accra, it's in Tamale. So that when I'm going to my community...
I've had this interaction with you.
Yeah, when I'm going to my community, that is the only time I use it to go to the communities. I use my small car in Accra. Right. It's not luxury. It's what you do for the people. And you go to the people, interact with them very well, you identify their problems and solve them.
I don't think there's any government anywhere in this world, in Ghana today, that goes looking out for people to where they say, I'm looking out for people who are self-made. That's not what we look out for.
But on most political campaign,
I asked the question because this is an observation made by a top politician in the country. Now let's change the subject to the IMF and government's own negotiations. Currently, we're being told that is underway with the Ministry of Finance, or between the Ministry of Finance, other public sector agencies, as well as the International Monetary Fund. And it means that we're going for a bailout. And concerns have been raised, especially by the minority in Parliament. And these concerns have been raised by former Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. Anthony Akutuose. And he says that due to the conditionality that you need to reduce your wage bill, cut costs, it means definitely, well, you have also to reduce the number of jobs in the public sector, just to reduce the money you spend on wages, emolument, etc. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, Nana?
Yeah.
But it's not speculative, because it's in the economic books.
And it comes with huge implications. Implications that could mean exacerbating our conditions that we already think is precarious. And so you would have to trust the strategic negotiation skills of Team Ghana, so that if that is not strong, or if that is compromised, and the IMF, for instance, begins to tell you that you've got to reduce your workforce, you've got to look at your wage bill, you've got to take away some of these exemptions of tax and all of those things, then you know that we are in for trouble. But then also, I think we should bear in mind that whatever solution or package that we're going to inherit from the IMF today is not something that is going to translate into the economy, rejuvenating overnight. It's something that will take time. And so Ghanaians should abreast themselves and be ready for more physical discipline. Otherwise, the recklessness continues. How much is coming in? I don't think anything above $1.5 billion is coming in. We've had huge sums of money coming into the country already. And so if it's just about the money coming into the country that is needed to transform this economy, then we've had huge billions coming to this country by way of loans, by way of revenue, all of those things. But that has not trickled down to, changing the quality of lives of people. So it means it takes more than just money coming in. So what does it take? Creativity, prioritization, innovation. Do we have that? Do we have the leadership that has all those things so that we can take advantage of whatever that is coming in? How much are we going to be paying in terms of interest on these loans that are coming in? 800 million to 1.5 billion is coming in, supposedly. How much we even pay or commit to some of the loans that we've taken so far, dwarfs that amount. So we need much more than just money to transform this economy.
But specifically, that's the reason why we're going to the IMF, to make sure that we get the confidence of the business community, and get the stringent regulation of our expenditure right.
Thank you very much. I thought that this is not the first time we're going to IMF for bailout.
Precisely.
We have to understand it. In the 80s, we went to IMF for bailout. That's where we have the PAMS card and all those programs that came in. Then in the 2000s, early 2000s, we went for bailout. So I think that both parties have gone through bailout and we've gathered enough experience. And therefore, when we're holding a press conference, we should make reference to what happened when we went for bailout. And therefore, based on that, we have these proposals. But no reference was made to that effect, that in the early 2000s, when we went for a bailout, these were the consequences, or these were what we paid for. But you see, the bailout started from when we had this court case, power crisis, gold prices dropping, and that translated to a sharp depreciation of the cedi. And therefore, there was the need, first homegrown, then we realized that there's a need for a bailout. The bailout doesn't necessarily mean that we are going for money. People shouldn't just pin it to money.
But you know we are going for money.
No, a bailout goes beyond. It could be physical discipline, it could be a lot, and not necessarily just money. Because we need money, that is why we are going for a bailout. It could be, they could assess the country and see that what we need is A, B, C, D. We do it, just get on board. And we have a higher, we have something big with the Eurobond, 1 billion coming in, and the Cocoa syndicate of $1.7 billion coming in. You realize that over the period with the coming in of the bailout from IMF, confidence, business confidence has been boosted. The cedi for some time has appreciated by about 6% against the dollar. And the economic conditions are getting stabilized. And therefore, it is a very good platform for us. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's money that Ghana is looking for. In terms of leadership, we have a leader who is focused, and challenges were bound to come. Even in US in 2008, they have the credit crunch. Is it just necessary leadership? Sometimes we live in a globalized world whereby one person do not dictate what happens today and tomorrow. Something happened tomorrow, it has a multiplier effect on us. Labor force is on strike in Nigeria, and it has a multiplier effect on us. The West African gas pipeline, which we don't control the labor there. So we must know that we operate in a globalized environment whereby externalities are there. The decision of one person in US has an effect on us. So that is what we must know. And therefore, going for the bailout is very important. We shouldn't just pin it down to only money.
You know, the growth in discipline we've seen in our system is not externally induced. We've had situations where monies have been paid to organizations or companies for work not done. That was not externally induced. The RLG, the Azonta Benz & Co., those things were not externally induced. And so when we talk about discipline or indiscipline, let's stop looking for excuses that they were externally induced.
But now we're going to the IMF. Now we're going to the IMF, Nana.
And he was right that this is not the first time we are going to the IMF. Indiscipline has become part of us.
And logically, when you go to the IMF, it means that your expenditure will be streamlined.
Will be streamlined.
Yes.
And that has implications.
And then, more importantly, you get the confidence of the investor community and the business community. You could even be getting good credit ratings now, just because now you have a very good supervisor in the body of the IMF. What has been disputed over the last couple of days is that there will be public sector job cuts. And, well, we've had the ministers of finance come to say that's the only futuristic and very speculative. And that is not the intention on paper. You
know, we've been crying, especially government has been crying, that what is squeezing this economy is the wage bill, the single spine. And so if you go to the IMF and lay these assumptions or facts before them, that this is where the economy is dying, then how will you want or expect the IMF to diagnose the problem? Then certainly arrest it. It's been the intention of government to arrest or to do something about the single spine. And then TUC has asked government, to publish wages. Let's see where the excesses are coming from. Because as far as TUC is concerned, the huge bills or the single spine alone is not responsible. There are government appointees that are taking all these huge sums of money, all these huge pegs. And to TUC, that is where the money is getting to. And so, government thinking that a wage bill is the problem, the single spine is the problem, logically, the IMF looking into that will be thinking about, how about the freeze? How about the freezing on, employment? How about reducing it? There's something ought to be done about it. But already, look at Ghanaians, the cost of living, even what government thinks is paying people and thinks is so huge, it is not enough, to fend for people's basic shelter and basic feeding and basic clothing. And if you want to do something to that, they're going to reduce or stop, how do you expect them to live? We are talking about times when we are having huge unemployment growth. And you want to put a freeze? Or there's a thinking that we should put a freeze on employment? How do you expect people to live? The cost of living has become unbearable. And so anything that will be coming by way of structural or physical discipline that will exacerbate the already precarious situation is bound to have a fallout. I heard TUC yesterday saying that anything like that is going to force them to demonstrate. It's going to force them to go the way the Nigerian labor force is going.
But that's not on paper, is it? It's all speculative.
It's all very speculative, but it's possible. Everything is speculative until it happens.
You see, my friend has drawn a straight line equation. It's a linear equation he's looking at. And that is wrong. Am I okay? What is the government doing to make sure that we boost revenue? Because when government say the wage bill, they are working on it. Wage bill can come because we have not been able to, as a result of the introduction of the single spine, we've not been able to increase revenue to an extent that will be able to reduce the percentage. So there are two ways. Either you increase your revenue or you reduce jobs. So you are looking at it from one side, but it is not linear. The system is not linear, whereby you look at it and predict just because it is this. So you realize that you're looking at it. The president has taken a lot of steps to ensure that we produce enough for export and to feed ourselves, and therefore reducing import.
That's on paper.
And in his State of the Nations address, let me land. He made certain milestones. One, he said, we need to set up a sugar factory so that the importation will stop. What is happening, Commander? He said we need to change the EDIF law to make it domestic friendly. Just 3 weeks ago, 47.7 million given out to 11 local companies to boost production. The rice factory at Savulgu is ongoing. Very soon it will kickstart. He talked about import of poultry products. That is bringing a lot of import bill on it. As we speak, about 300,000 broilers are being raised. That is the beginning. So certain steps are being taken to ensure that our dependence on import and local revenue is improved. At the back of this, so many projects have been going on. The Takoradi Harbour expansion is going on. Tema Harbour expansion is going on. The Tamale International Airport is going on. The roads, Bupe Tamale is going on, Damango, Fufuso, Sularu. So they are building the infrastructure while tackling to ensure that we increase our revenue.
Somebody will say that's good, that's good talk.
Create employment. It is going on. It is not that we are seated and we are talking. Go on the ground. You will see that work is going. How do we increase employment? Is it only public sector? Is it only public sector we have employment created? Do you know why the international airport in Tamale will create? One, fresh vegetables, fresh agri-product like mangoes and what have you. Plantations are going to come up. The youth will get a lot of employment. So we shouldn't look at it like a linear equation, whereby
by building airports, people will get into farming.
Do you know what it is going to be? It is more of cargo. And if it is more of cargo, people will set up plantations.
Mm.
As at now, we can't cut mangoes.
For example,
from
we're
the
going to
north.
have pack houses at the airport for
Yes.
which we have horticultural crops.
If people set up plantations, they need people to work on the plantations.
We're going to set up plantations in Ghana.
In the northern sector of the economy of Ghana. So it is going to bring a lot of employment. So it is not like a linear equation whereby you say if I put 2 here, the results will be 10. No, the system is not like that. There are several ways we're looking at it. And therefore, just going straight to job cut alone is not enough. It is not a good propaganda tool to use.
If the government was that competent in mobilizing or generating revenue, it wouldn't be going to the IMF. If it was that competent to mobilize and generate revenue, it should be going to the IMF. And so I didn't want to talk about government revenue generation
you always limit the IMF
because it has failed woefully. And this expansion of ports
in the beginning,
and coal.
In the beginning of the millennium, after 2000, when we went for a bailout from the IMF, for which we've had a number of projects that were undertaken as a result of the grants that we got as a result of it. Was it because perhaps we had an incompetent government at the time?
Come again?
You say because the government is incompetent, that's why the government is going to the IMF. I'm saying that after 2000 when we went to the IMF, was it because the government at the time was incompetent?
My brother, when we went to the IMF after 2000, the history of the MPP with the IMF is that we wean off ourselves from the IMF. And it had to start from a place, debt relief and all of those things. But then we began the journey to relieve ourselves of the IMF. And they have come in to take us back,
you see,
to the IMF.
You see,
and so
it's like a body. Governance is like a body. You are healthy today, tomorrow you have some little headache. So it's not like, you see, they think that is only this. Why were we borrowing to pay salary in 2008? If you think that the economy was buoyant, why should Vodafone go? And a leading member will say, if we don't sell it, we can't even pay salaries. And you say economy is buoyant, you must admit that economy is like a human being. Today I'm very strong. Maybe due to A, B, C, I'll fall sick, recover. And that is what has been going to go to US. Has US been throughout the centuries, been growing every day? No. That is what we must learn. That is what we must learn. That economy is not like a stick.
And talking about the economy, one of the variables that have not been adequately looked at, well, government has been trying effectively to look at, is the subject of energy or power supply. We've had some intermittent interruptions over the last few years. And there was some stability the last couple of months, but now we're back into the darkness just because we've had shortages of gas supply from Nigeria. That also speaks volumes about perhaps how as a country we don't prepare in the medium to long term to resolve our energy issues. So
yeah, this energy issue has been a problem with us not now. In 1998,
we seem not to have solutions to it as a country.
We tried to intervene, but it's not been as we expected. But it's good to have to we look at it. Is the NDC government contributing significantly to energy? Yes. And I can give statistics. In 2000, we had 1,000.
Should it always be about the MPP?
No,
my brother.
No, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it.
Well,
so that when we are addressing today's issue, it shouldn't be limited to one party. I'm looking at history because it's very, very important.
You want to draw a certain perspective.
Yes. If you don't draw it, and then we look at it as if it is a problem that we have gone through for over a period, and there is the need to bring unity and see how to build the energy sector, will have a problem. So that we shouldn't look at it being one. In 2000, the total energy that we have was 1,680 megawatts. As at 2008, we have 2,000 megawatts. And by the end of 2013, we have 2,845 megawatts. This is not yet enough. You realize that from 2000 to 2008, 320 megawatts has been added. From 2008 to date, 840 to December 2013, 845 megawatts has been added in 5 years. But that is not enough because the demand is higher than what we generate. Because if demand is growing by 12% per annum, and we are not able to increase the generation by more than 12%, because we need what we call the reserve margin of 18%, so that when one plant breaks down, others can replace it, and then we still have difficulties.
You're telling us about the generation mix,
and therefore
it doesn't make.
And therefore, there is the need for us to speed our gas plant at Otuobo.
Well, we're told that it's finished.
Yes, that is, it should join
but the concern that has
mainstream.
always been raised by even
And
the energy experts.
Yeah, we need to. Yesterday I was reading coal will be very, very important.
Coal?
Yes.
Coal?
Coal, yeah. And a memorandum of understanding has been signed with the Minister of Energy, with the parent company of Asogli power plant for 1,200 megawatts. We need to have enough energy to generate. And two, what is happening in Nigeria tells us that we need to be self-reliant to some extent when it comes to energy. We shouldn't be dependent on other countries alone. What is happening between Russia and Europe should be a lesson to us, where Russia supply more than 40% of the energy need to the Europeans. And in case of any this thing, it can have. So my destiny is that this 5,000 megawatts we said we'll generate by 2016 as a government. We should forge ahead and make sure we achieve it and reduce dependency on other people in terms of
5,000 megawatts in 2016.
Yeah.
You know, you want to build plants to generate 5,000 megawatts of power. What is going to power them? Is it thermal? Is it gas? I don't see even all the gas coming from the West African gas pipeline and what coming from the Jubilee Park combined at optimal production will not give us 5,000 megawatts. It can't. And so when we are planning on these things, let's be a bit realistic. From the start, going into this agreement with Nigeria, it was obvious that it was never going to be reliable. At the time, we had this Ogoni crisis. And so you had these people who were tampering with pipelines and all of those things. So the risk was always there that this pipe was never going to be reliable. We know Nigeria. Now the Ogoni crisis is over. But all these intermittent conflicts and industrial actions will lead to Pengassin, going down or going off, and all of those things. So there was no way we could have relied on the West African gas pipeline. I thought that as a country, we would have been very creative and, engaged ourselves in how were we going to produce reliable power. In Accra today, we produce over 2,000 tons of waste every day. We don't even know how to pack them. We don't even know how to process them. And it's causing us sickness, cholera. This is something can be pushed into waste generation. In Sweden today, there is scarcity of waste. They have to import waste. And this technology is no longer new. It's growing and spreading in the US, in Brazil, in Canada. We could rely on ourselves.
You mean renewable waste?
Renewable. All this waste we pack everywhere, want to dispose them, they can be channeled into power generation. 3,000 tons of solid waste can give it about 400 megawatts of power. Which is something we generate every day in Accra. So if it's something that we've had leadership that have brought their mind to it, there's always been the solution. But since Nkrumah put up the Akosombo Dam, which was giving us power in excess of what we needed, I mean, leadership after leadership have continued to fail us as far as power reliability is concerned.
Okay, let me ask you. So if you're talking about leadership, who is the leader that is likely to put all these ideas you are even talking about into?
It's not about one person. Okay. It's not about a personality. It's about look at the country. At the level of politics, at the level of state institutions, we need that leadership that will be dying to put Ghana on the map. And that's what we've lacked.
Now, how do we now take a relook at the way our current energy mix is and say, well, if we decide to go for crude, it means that we have to let Ghanaians pay more, because if we want to also rely on other renewable energy sources, it means that we need to have the capital to inject into such a venture at the earliest time.
Thank you very much. Yes. In the energy mix, we have the hydro, we have the thermal, then we have the renewables. The thermal, you could use light crude oil, and you could power with gas. But in getting all these things done, it's not overnight. Investor interest is very significant. Yes, we have waste. When we set up something, a factory to produce, can we provide daily? It's another thing.
Well, I'm sure we can. We generate a lot of waste.
Let's do our analysis very well. And why is it that most people who come, even IPPs for renewables, wants to use the solar? They will do all these things. So it is not like you just get up, you wish that you generate this, and you go and you set it up. It involves a lot. But let me tell you, to generate energy, it's not for jokes. Before you get sustainable energy for your people, we have to sacrifice. Because as we speak today, the IPPs, that is the independent power producers, don't want to sell their power in domestic, a local currency. And that means that we have to convert our local currency to hard earn dollar to pay. But the most important thing is that we need the power. The people must be ready to pay for it. Two, we must know that if I go out and put on my fans, my lights, and leave the house, I'm consuming power. We need to conserve. Conservation is very, very important. And why are we not having much interest in conserving energy? Because even though we say we pay more, but we don't feel the pain that I've paid 200 cedis. No, I must think about how I use the energy. And if we go that way and conserve enough, I think it will help us a lot. Most of our energy is being wasted. Sometimes you go out, street light, they are on daytime, 12 o'clock. They are on. What are they doing at that time? That means that we are not conserving enough. While we're generating, we must learn to conserve. If not, we can generate and generate, and it will be wasted. And at the end of the day, we'll come back to square one.
You know, we must have a roadmap and be consistent at it as to our power generation. You know, countries have excess power in stock. South Africa has about 50,000 megawatts in stock. We are talking about 2,000, 3,000 megawatts.
And we're struggling.
And we are struggling. It's a country. And so we don't have any business talking about, you know, industrialization and all of that when we've not addressed a basic factor like power.
Power is not basic.
My brother, it's basic,
it's
because in terms of
basic.
It is basic as far as industrialization is concerned. It's a requirement.
Yes.
So it's not basic.
If it's not basic.
Yeah.
If you begin to see like rocket science, then sit back.
Yeah. If we see it as basic, that is where we underrate it. We must see it as a necessary tool.
That makes it basic.
But no. You see, it doesn't just come offhand.
On a cheap.
On a silver platter. No.
Okay.
We all need. We are saying that by 2016.
Nobody says basics are
by
cheap.
2016.
Basics are necessary requirements. These are things
I get
we
your
need
point
to take
from where you're using your basics. It's just a matter of the semantics.
You see, we need to know that, yes, we have 5,000, we propose 5,000 megawatts by 2016. How do we get there?
Okay.
How do we get people on board? Everybody must come.
There's this question that I've asked a number of the energy experts, etc., and they also tend to have various ideas about it. The point is, in this current scenario where we're supposed to be having power rationing,
Yeah.
in order that the various variables or sectors of the economy do not suffer, where do we put the priorities? Because we're shedding load, and even industries are also suffering.
Yeah.
So do we give industries power to the detriment of the ordinary consumer, or just because of political sentiment's sake, we also want to give the ordinary consumer and also alongside give the industries, and as a result of that we have to now shed the load?
You know,
at the end of the day, we need to draw a certain balance and draw a certain or come to a certain congruence or consensus as a country.
Roland,
because if industry does well, it reflects on the overall performance of the
certainly,
economy.
we need industry, we need factories, we need commerce. You know,
and people also need lights.
Certainly, but then
Because if they don't get light for a very long time, they won't vote for you at the end of the period.
Where do we lay the the emphasis, the priority? And if our planning was up to good, so that we don't cite factories and industries in residential areas, then it becomes very easy to channel, say, okay, in the daytime, factories and industries are most of the time working. Mm-hmm. So in the daytime, households and residents don't have light. Industries and factories will have light. And then at night, factories and industries go off. And then households have light. But we have a mixture, behind my house we have this welding thing going on. It's not supposed to be sighted there, but then it is there. And we have all this all over. So it's difficult to even restrict light to say factory A, factory B, factory C, whereas residents or homes.
But we have designated industrial points or enclaves.
We have that, but then are we strictly abiding by that? When you talk about the mining and those ones, then you can.
No, but even the normal industries, we have in the industrial areas in Accra, we have some.
But in the we have people living there.
We have categorization. We have semi-industrial areas.
Yeah.
Then we also have full industrial.
We have semi, and sometimes it depends on location, closest to market.
If you are talking about the SMEs and their locations, so those are different.
But most of the huge industries, some work 24 hours. Most of them work 24 hours.
That's not even doing their own power.
Do you get my point? But when it comes to whether industrial or domestic, I'll look at it from two. Yes, we need the industry to function, to produce. At the same time, the people also need electricity. So it's a balancing act that we must work on. But when it comes to the tariff, in most of the developed countries, the industries pay less because they must produce at low cost. And therefore, over a time, they can achieve economic.
I wanted us to talk about a bit of politics, but I have to wrap up now, so we have to take the discussions. And for the last 1 hour, we've been talking on a number of subjects, from CHRAJ to high cost of electricity and government's negotiation with the IMF, etc. And some political news would have been nice, would have for the morning. But my guests for the morning have been Nana Atubra Kweku. He is the head of research at the Dankwa Institute, DI they call them.
Yeah.
All right. And then also the NDC Member of Parliament for Damango is Adam Mutawakilu. Thanks for joining me, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
When are you coming back to Parliament? Is it in October?
October, end of October.
End of October. You have a very long time.
Yeah, we still have some time.
Okay, so that's it. Next.